The Trades Union Congress says recent hikes in electricity and water tariffs is a manifestation of government's insensitivity to economic hardships Ghanaians are facing. It is asking government to subsidize utilities. Also, the Polytechnic Teachers Association insists government must pay them their book and research allowance before it calls off its strike. So is government handling these issues well? We'll find out today on today's big story. My name is Prince Menka and welcome to the program. Well, the Trades Union Congress at its recent Congress deliberated on the gloomy economic situation and the underlying governance challenges in the country. Now, it made some recommendation, and the TUC, amongst plethora of issues, feels surprised at a 17.5% VAT on the non-core banking services, which was to be implemented from July 2014. Now, they're also saying that they're very much aware of the indefinite suspension of the VAT on financial services. But contrary to messages and assurances by government, it was clear that the cost of banking was going to be higher for the general banking public. The TUC is also recommending that government should consider raising taxes on the super profit of banks and other financial institutions instead of charging VAT on banking services. The TUC also maintained its call on government to subsidize the cost of utilities in the country, saying the current pricing formula for fuel, electricity and water punishes consumers, even though the National Petroleum Authority insists Ghanaians must pay realistic prices for petroleum products. Now, let's go on the line now and speak more on this issue. Wilson Agana is the chairman of the Tema District Council of Labour, and he joins us on today's big story. Wilson, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I am doing great, Wilson. But aren't you putting a lot of pressure on government? Are you being realistic in your demands and recommendations?
How are we putting pressure? No pressure. Yeah? You wish for war. When the war comes, you fight it. So there's no pressure. There's nothing we are doing. We are demanding what is right for us. We are fighting for the right. What is good for workers and what is good for the whole Ghanaian. That is what we are doing. There's no pressure on them.
Now, how right are your demands when we know very well that government, for the PRC in this case, had to look at the current situation with the supply of energy and even water, as per the utility service providers. And with this quarter of the year, they had to decrease the percentage as far as the utility tariff increment is concerned. Don't you think that some considerations were made before the increment was done? And so asking for government to subsidize utility will be wrong at this particular point in time?
It is very, very important they subsidize. It's very important. You know, the last time this PRS issue arose, we wanted to go on a nationwide strike. But we have to put a lot of things into consideration. And we agree that they should use the formula. But the cost of living, the way things are going in this country now, we can't accept those things. Because, number one, we think that the electricity, water, and all that should do more. They should do a lot of service to us. But we don't see. From that time, immediately we agree that they should implement that new tariff. Things are worse. Things has gotten worse. Very, 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 very bad. I am telling you, the whole of this week, I took a bath shower once. It's today. Water is not flowing. Electricity worse. And they're supposed to improve upon their condition. If things are going on, they're having the service, they're having water is flowing, electricity, no do so and all those things. Then we are talking of a formula. We agree. We increase it, we agree. But we are not getting the service. And why do you pay for the service? Yesterday morning, I had a quarrel with a young man who came to read my meter. And I told him he should see water for the whole week. Water is flowing. When he came, water was not flowing. But meanwhile, they will give you the same bill. That is what we are talking about. But the waste in the system is too much.
Well, I'll get into the issue of subsidy as far as utilities are concerned, but let me raise this one for you. Now, as we all know, there is a 12.09% and 6.1% increase in electricity and water tariffs, respectively. Now, Here's what the PRC mentioned. They mentioned that, look, this is part of the automatic adjustment formula, and they were supposed to have arrived at 31.56% for electricity and 14.30% for water. But the Director of Public Affairs at the PRC, Nanaya Jantwa, she indicated that, look, the Commission decided not to pass on the current increase, but rather implement the second quarter tariffs. Now, wouldn't you say that some considerations were made owing to the current situation with electricity and water, and for that matter, you should tread cautiously in as much as you throw caution to government?
My brother, all is a game. Because they themselves knew that they are not performing. They are not doing the right thing. That is why. If you are doing the correct thing, you'll be brave and you increase. If it's 32 or 40, you say you increase because you know that they said you are working. But they themselves, they know it's a disease to them. They cannot do it. That is why they are bringing that figure. I am telling you. Because they knew it is wrong, because they are not performing. There is no water flowing. Electricity, the illegal connection, what they themselves are doing. There is no private person or individual doing illegal connection. They themselves are doing the whole thing. How are they checking those who are collecting their bills? And, people that go to the field and all, how do they check them? Poor observations, poor, everybody is poor. So they themselves, if they come with high figure, they will be poor. That is why they are saying that if they know that they are doing the correct thing, they should bring that figure and we'll deal with them.
So what will be your general decision? What decision are you going to take? I'm talking about organized labor. What are you likely to do?
Seriously, we are making this, and nobody will ask us to stop, because the problem in which we are now in Ghana is not a small thing, my brother. People are suffering. We are suffering. There's a lot of things. Look, why as at today, they want to say they spend a lot of money. What is the outcome of the century? They should come out if the decision they arrive at century. Like we can sympathize with that. Oh, you are doing something. You are going this way, left and right, and all. Till now, till now. You only went and brought a queer down for nothing and to chop a lot of things. What can you do? A very serious thing, invite that a queer that is forget.
Very well. Let me just bring in Gilbert Ibrahim. He's an economist, and just would want to find out from him exactly how this is going to work. You're asking government to subsidize utilities. Gilbert, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on today's big story.
Good evening, Prince. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Now, Labour is asking government to subsidize utilities, and they are linking this to the current economic situation in the country. They're saying that standards of living is high. For that reason, increasing utility at this particular point in time is not relevant. Subsidy on utilities, is it possible?
Yeah, I mean, if you take labor groups, they are crying for government to subsidize and not increase. It could be, it's justified because the economic condition of the country is really harsh, and government or the managers of the economy really has to sit up and change situations so that labor groups will have it, because cost of living is going up. Also, on the other hand, if you also look at it from the angle of the utility provider, they are presently saying they are not charging economic rates. And even the automatic adjustment, if you follow through the TORC group, you realize that they are saying that it's supposed to go higher than the present one. But they decided, because the condition of the economy is not good enough, and the condition of the workers, so they are coming up with these minimal increases. They also have a point. Just as the labor group also have a point that cost of living is going up. So instead of giving it a major increase, they decided to pick it at this level. Now, I mean, if I'm listening on your guest in the city talked about there is no water, there is no electricity. That is an obvious admission that the utility providers have challenges, and their challenge is also the same money the labor group is asking for to expand their capacity and so that their efficiency and effectiveness would also be improved, so that they will get water to everybody at the same time. And that means that they are supposed to charge the economic rate so that they can bring the water we are complaining we are not getting it. And they will charge. But then the economic condition is not resilient enough to take such major increase. So what we think is that government should manage, let the economic productivity and stuff pick up. The revenue of government will improve. The government will now be able to be in the point is that if government is taxed to subsidize, that government have the capacity to subsidize at this time where we all admit that there are economic challenges. And that's why sometimes if you listen to the cry and the fight of the trade union group, they are fighting in the interest of their people. But sometimes it tends to backfire. For example, earlier, when government said they were trying to increase the prices of utilities, they rose up. Government quickly decided to reduce it. And at the end of the day, I mean, if government will reduce and subsidize, government will by all means have to look for the money to pay for the subsidy. And the effect was the introduction of the VAT. And we have minorities say they smuggled it through VAT and passed it through so that they can raise the revenue and subsidize. So, and the very thing the labor groups were fighting for their members, it came back through VAT because government will definitely raise the money again to subsidize. So in this case also, if they do not increase it and pressure comes on government to subsidize, government will agree, play the political game and grant the subsidy. But government will have to raise the revenue from the same people and get the money and pay it. So here I just see that we have gotten to a level that we need to all play it safe, sit on a dialogue table, then we compromise a little so that government will be able to meet us away. We also now sacrifice knowing that there are crises in the country so that we also meet somewhere so that one day the utility providers will not also completely get out of it so that the very thing we are complaining could get worse. These are some of the issues that play. Hello. Yeah.
You heard Gilbert Ibrahim mention there that, look, it will be economically unwise at this particular point in time to have government subsidize utilities. Now, how are you going to consider that, going forward? Are you going to negotiate with the government? Are you going to understand that, look, these are the situation that we are faced with at this particular point in time, and so you're going to back down on your calls?
We try to sit with them and explain things to them, our grievances. Like I'm saying, they are not providing any good services. If you are providing the good services and all those things, there's a lot of things we consider. We are Ghanaians. We wouldn't want Ghana to collapse. But the service itself is not really good. So how do I do that?
Just hold on.
They are not giving me food, then you want me to pay for the food that I've not eaten. Give me the banku or whatever, then I'll pay for the amount involved. That's the problem. We are prepared to speak with them when we talk. The last time we gave them a lot of these things, the way forward and all those things. We started this is not today. Dr. Rufo, the former finance minister, we met with him and all those things. How to even widen the tax, they wouldn't want to do it. So it is the same workers, labor, we are paying this in. It's the same people who are paying that tax. It's the same tax that you are using for this. But there's people going around doing a lot of business. Chinese are doing a lot of business and all this. Proper tax are not paid. So every time it is the same neck that is carrying the load, is carrying. Okay. There's no help.
Very
well.
Why
the services are not good.
Very well, Wilson. Thank you very much. Gilbert, coming to you, way forward for government will be what?
The going forward should be government should show the commitment, assuring the labor group that they will work in their interest. And that will mean that government must play the role, an exemplary role, and government appointees must live a lifestyle that shows commitment and the love to sacrifice for everybody. Then everybody cannot emulate so that we can also meet government halfway, admitting that there are challenges in the economy. And that will also mean that the regulatory authorities, our providers of our utilities, would also need to be supported. And whatever subsidy that they are supposed to get should be granted on time so that they can also improve their delivery. And when the delivery is smooth, there's good electricity, there's water supply, then you are even increasing. If they improve on their production, when you are increasing this, people will not complain because there's no power, there's no water, and yet you want to increase. But if it is regularly flowing at home and the power is there and you are increasing, it will be easier for people to understand and accept it. Then it's not there, it's erratic, and yet you want to increase.
Okay.
So which way out?
Very well. Thank you very much, Gilbert Ibrahim, for talking to us here on today's Big Story. David Agbe joins us in the studio. He's with the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. Good evening, David.
Good evening, Prince.
Now, still on this debate, listening to Labour, they are saying that there should be subsidy on utility, for that matter, owing to the current economic situation in the country. Are they justified in making such demands?
Really, let me say that nobody can tell the labor force that they are not justified as we speak now, because everybody is in this country and we all know what is going on. You know, the way the country is being governed now, people are so much dissatisfied with the way things are being done. And so it's difficult for you to convince people to actually back down because they've realized that politicians, you need to pin them down at a certain point in time. Look at all these, blaster money splash all over. We've heard that almost about 4.5 or 3 billion, a million US dollars. And then currently the MPA, saga, rent alone, 63,000 US dollars.
And so these form the basis of such
forms the basis
arguments.
of the argument that the government actually has money. If the government does not have money, they wouldn't be, splashing all these money across. So they must also demand more. Actually, on 26th of last month, we were actually invited by TUC, by Mr. Kofi Asamoah and Dr. Ban. They did excellent work over there. They were trying to explain issues to the labor force, the TUC members, almost about 120 people. We were there to present on the emerging oil upstream. They've heard us on different platforms here and there. So they said that they wanted to take our opinion and then be able to write something to the government. So we were there whilst they were doing all these debates. And the labor force, as we speak now, they are so much annoying with government, especially with regards to this 17.5 issue that they were supposed to tax every Ghanaian. They were not happy at all about it, but luckily enough, government has seen that people are so much angry with those policies.
But what about the intervention PRC made? I mean, as far as the increment of utility tariff in this quarter is concerned, they didn't peg it at the initial percentage that was supposed to have been arrived at, owing to the current challenges that we face in both electricity supply and water. Why don't you think organized labor is not looking in that direction, but rather are insisting that, look, we're paying more for electricity. We don't want to do it again.
It's all about the purchasing power. When you receive your salary and then your salary cannot take you home, you use it to, pay all utility bills, and at the end of the day, you go home empty-handed. So people are going through that process, that we are paying electricity bill, we are paying water bill, we are paying so many bills, whereas our salary is not also commensurate with all those things. So people are observing what is happening in the country. So it's difficult for government to actually control all those people. But then I think that government needs to actually meet the Trade Union Congress, because Trade Union Congress, the way the members are so much aggrieved with the government need to take their views seriously. Okay. If not, government is going to face the wrath of the labor unions. And so the proposal that government should find innovative way of taxing the banks, because the banks now, every year, some of them get as much as 120% profit, 100% profit, 80% profit. The least you could find in the market, I mean, is about 50. So government should find an appropriate way of taxing those people who are making so much profit. And then some of them, the foreign banks, they will repatriate all those monies away. And so government should try and find a genuine ways of taxing other people so that government could also generate enough revenue. As we speak now, government is not generating enough revenue. And so all the time, that is why we are borrowing more. And when you continue to borrow more, then you are depleting your own maybe your own reserves. And so government should find a way of taxing the people across the country. Everybody must be taxed in this country. It looks as if few people are being taxed and others are being neglected. For me, I don't know if there is any subsidy in this country. I mean, it looks as if it's just a myth or a host. But I think that if there should be other group of people who needs to be subsidized, is those people in the villages, in those towns and communities.
But what about the argument that Gilbert makes that it will be economically unwise at this particular point in time?
That is why I said that the two of us in the urban center, we shouldn't be crying of those subsidies. If there should be any subsidy, we should be able to, actually give it to those people in the villages. But for me, I don't believe that there is any subsidy in these oil matter and other things. I do not subscribe to that at all. I think that if government will actually bring a certain formula that we will all see and witness that, yes, it is a genuine formula, that there is a certain level of subsidy in oil or utility or any other sources, fine enough, but I have not seen those formulas. So it's difficult for me to say that, yes, there are subsidies on all these materials.
All right, shortly, I'll pick your thoughts on how government is handling some other issues happening on the labor front, because the Polytechnic Teachers Association of Ghana insists that government needs to pay them their book and research allowance, despite explanation coming in from the Education Ministry that they don't, at this particular point in time, owe them any allowance. But we'll do that shortly, because we'll be in Kumasi live, and we'll speak to the president of POTAG at the Kumasi Polytechnic, and he'll tell us what they are going to do at this particular point in time. This is still today's big story here on Joy News. You're still tuned into today's big story here on Joy News on Multi TV. Let's hit the phone lines now and continue our discussion on some of the issues panning out on the labor front, because the Polytechnic Teachers Association of Ghana insists that the Education Ministry has it all wrong, in as much as they conclude that POTAG does not owe them, they don't owe POTAG any money as far as their book and research allowance is concerned. Edmond Opong Pepra is the president of POTAG at the Kumasi Polytechnic, and he joins us on the line. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for joining us on today's big story. Now, going forward, really listening to the Education Ministry, is there are we going to see a situation any moment from now where you're going to call off your strike?
Yes, I think it all depends on government and government's position. First of all, it is interesting to note that now government has shifted its stance from non-payment to, let's say, if I may, payment in September, though without this very much. If government is really committed and then wants POTAG to believe that it is committed to resolving this issue, then they should invite us and tell us to our face that they are going to pay in September. Then we should also know the steps they've taken to initiate the process for payment, because it is not just saying payment in September. We are aware that we go through several processes. I don't know if the honorable who made that statement is aware of this process, but first of all, the fair wages and then the salaries commission must be notified. They must also. But
what was the initial agreement between you and government? I mean, when I talk about you, I'm referring to POTAG. What was the initial agreement in terms of the payment?
The agreement as pertains in the conditions of service is that POTAG be paid the book and research allowance every academic year.
But there was also the book and research fund.
In fact, as of that time, we had not heard of any book and research fund. And even as of now, we have not seen the establishment of any book and research fund. We know there's a proposal to that effect. But today, as I speak with you, you cannot pinpoint or put out your fingers.
And so briefly, what do you want government to do?
Well, what we want government to do right now is to show commitment that it is going to pay our book and research allowance.
Okay. Very well. Thank you. Let's leave it here. Thank you very much for talking to us. David, are you satisfied with the way government is handling these issues? I mean, the Polytechnic students are still worried. They would want their lecturers back in the classroom. We have a few minutes to go, though. Briefly, your analysis.
I think that I disagree with the polytechnic, lecturers so far. My disagreement is that they are doing so much injustice to the students. For almost about 1 month or more than 1 month ago, that the students.
But there's
are
a
just
back and forth between them and
precisely,
government. When is it going to end? They want
to the students. For me, my argument is all about the students. It's not about the lecturers. At the end of the month, they are going to take their salary.
They want the allowance as
no,
well.
They've been paid their salary. But how? What
allowance.
About the students?
Who can research allowance?
No, we are not talking about the allowance is good, but then they are doing injustice to the students. At the end of the month, I believe that they've gone to take their salary, but the students.
But what about government and the way it is handling
precisely
matters?
Government need to actually continue to negotiate with them and come to the resolution that this is the way forward. If the government is not going to pay, they should write to them and tell them that we are not going to pay. And so why is it that the lecturers have left the classroom for 1 month now whilst they are going to take their pay?
Okay.
What about the students? Who is taking care of the students?
Right.
So the lecturers too are doing injustice, and their conscience need to tell them that what they are doing is not good. They should also serve the interests of the students. We all need to keep our society, in a good shape. Whilst they are denying the students, and they are just pressing on their allowances, what about the interests of the students? And all these people will be going to churches here and there and be saying hallelujah. What are they doing?
But tapping your governance, expertise here, exactly how do you want government to go about this? Already you're hearing the poll tax saying that, look, we want real commitment. We want government to make a move.
Now it's becoming more of everything real commitment, everything real commitment. My point is that government should make it emphatic to them whether they are going to pay those allowances. If they are not going to pay, they should write to them and tell them that they are not going to pay, so that the students will also have their freedom. But now it looks as if government is not telling the students anything, and the students are rather suffering. And the lecturers are taking their salary at the end of the month.
If government does that, things are going to get worse.
I mean, government should be able to tell them that this is the way forward, rather than to. For my interest is all about the students. The student, nobody is speaking on behalf of the students now, and it is worrying. Government needs to be proactive, to make sure that they resolve all these matters. If they are not going to pay the allowances, they should tell them that we are not going to pay the allowances. And so we should be able to address the concerns of the students. For 1 month now, the lecturers are not on their campuses, and at the end of the month, they are going to take almost about 3,000 or whatever it is. What about the interest of the students? Okay. And so their conscience should serve them right.
Very well. We'll leave it here. Thank you very much, David. It's always a pleasure having you. David Agbe, he is with the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. Well, that's certainly it. Will be it for now. Coming up shortly, JN Interactive with Marian Ture. Stay tuned.